she's a much better writer than me, but we have very similar habits. The last 2 days, I woke up at 4 a.m. I still am in that newspaper Anita deadline mode. This Matt Hendricks story I've been working on for a month. It was going to run, then he got hurt. And if you haven't read this story, please do. It is gripping, especially the middle part where I talk to this woman named Siobhan Anderson here, who, because of the United Heroes League, this is an incredible story. So I'll instead of burying the lead, I'll just tell you what happened. Is that Siobhan Anderson's husband committed suicide because of PTSD that was undiagnosed, and this happened 5 years ago. 4 years ago, she moved to Farmington. Her kids got into hockey. She's got 4 children. One she was pregnant with at the time. 2 that are 10 and 11 got into hockey in the Farmington area. But she's worried about her kids, obviously. And so she started getting involved with all sorts of organizations that help the military, especially kids. And United Heroes League is this amazing thing that was started by Shane Hudella, that his job is he has made it his life's work to raise money to basically make sure that these kids that love hockey, whose parents are in the military or were in the military, can afford the high cost of hockey, because these kids don't sign on the dotted line. So she gets into her kids in the United Heroes League, and they've gone to all these different incredible activities. They've met guys like Charlie Coyle and Devin Dubnyk and Zach Parisi. And Shane Hudella is really obviously touched by her story, so he invites her, to his golf outing at the end of June in Prior Lake to give a speech. Tim Paling is listening to this. Tim Paling is the dad of Jack, Ryan, and Nick Paling of St. Cloud State. He hears this, is so touched, bids on this fishing trip that Matt Hendricks and Zach Bogosian have donated to take a family out fishing. And he secretly bids on it, wins it, and then after the event was over, goes over to the family and donates the trip. And it's just a really cool story. Thanks for reading, Vicky. So you better still read it. I will. Yeah. I had to get some comedy in there. But
that's on StarTribune.com, right?
So this is a story that I've been working on. Yeah. So you won't find it there. So anyway, this is a story I've been writing on for a while, and because of this story, like a lot of times stories just flow out of your fingertips. Joe's an incredible writer, Jim's an incredible writer, and so they could attest this. Sometimes you really have to build a template, and I will say with that one, I've written a lot of stories lately that I've reworked. That one was tough because I didn't know how high to make it. And I probably should have made it the lead of the story, but I also wanted it to correlate with Military Appreciation Night, which was going on yesterday at the arena, and explain why, which his dad is the reason why he is so into helping the military. So that one's different. The Paul Martin story today, usually in my head, I could time out exactly what time to wake up and write a story and be done with it at the exact moment that, say, I have to leave for the arena. The Paul Martin story today, for some bizarre reason, just flowed out of my fingertips in an hour and a half, and that's a long story. So that one, just sometimes they're easy, sometimes you aggravate. The Brady Boudreaux story took me so long to write. The Ryan Carter story took me an hour to write. Some stories and that one, and all of them are the same length essentially. I write too long, but so everything's different. But I do sometimes I'm not kidding you. A lot of times also, it's crazy, but I'll wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. to write these stories because I essentially write the story in my sleep. I'm not kidding you. I'll wake up and I will go to my laptop and the lead will just pop right out because I've thought about it going to sleep. I honestly dream about the story, and then I wake up and I'm sometimes able to write actual passages that came out. Some people like Dane Mizutani, I notice he's the Pioneer Press writer. He'll actually be in the locker room and he'll be on his notes part of his iPhone, and I can tell that he's writing down lines that he wants to say in his story. I do it more in my head. So everybody's different.
I do both.
Yeah.
I'll write things down.
Him on deadline is just something to see. Like he'll write these stories on the same deadline that we're on, and he has one-liners that I'm just like, I don't even know how you come up with it. It's crazy. So,
but I have the same experience. If I'm struggling with a story, I'll go to sleep.
yeah.
And then your brain organizes
Yeah.
itself while you're asleep. You wake
Yeah.
up and it becomes very easy,
Yeah.
or at least easier to write.
No, and I will say I cannot write tired. If I'm exhausted, I just and the job I have now, Chris, is a lot harder. I was talking to Isabel about this yesterday. It's a lot harder than the Strib from the standpoint that you have to be so self-disciplined. It is so easy when you essentially have total autonomy and no boss and the Star Tribune's waiting for the article. They've planned for it all week. We have a budget that we plan stuff on. A budget meaning in newspaper terms, that's where you take your allotted space and you actually budget out where a story is going to go and put it down. And so if I'm writing Matt Hendricks and I say it's coming in this day, they expect it. Where at the Athletic, if I just don't feel like it, and I call Zach Pierce up, our editor, and say, "Hey, I'm going to run this on this date," he couldn't give a crap. It's just like, yeah, no problem. This Hendricks story was originally going to run on Veterans Day, but then after Joe Mauer retirement happened and Jimmy Butler trade, we just decided that eyeballs on a Sunday for Veterans Day, it just wasn't going to be enough. So we decided to run it on Military Appreciation Day. But and again, it's the same thing. Like Paul Martin's story today, I met with him on Monday, and I just told him, like, hey, keep your mouth shut for 2 days. I was able to tell him this is when I'm running it. And then even today, when I wasn't positive the story was going to run, I'm just like, hey, just don't say anything yet. I had to, tell the U because all this, I'd sort of, been talking to him for a month and a half about, hey, I want to write it, so let me, sort of, for lack of a better term, break it. But even the U, I called the U up they didn't know, and I called them to just get his final stats, and then same thing with the U. I kind of don't put out a press release until I tell you that I'm running it type thing. So sometimes you work on things differently.
Absolutely.
So,
Bert.
All right. So I just wanted to kind of piggyback off what other people were saying. Last night, it didn't seem like a 5-2 loss for the Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't look that bad. The Caps were a turnover machine.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just so.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a different, as Don was saying, it's a totally different game if, one, those posts don't happen.
Yeah.
But the other thing, I don't know if you, one of my first or only tweets of the first period was the Stahl line is causing turnovers every single shift at the defensive blue line, meaning the Caps blue line.
Yeah.
And you just if they could have just been a little, but there's a perfect example of where on the road trip they were so sharp, and that one they caused the turnover, and then what happened? Either Zucker, Stahl, or Granlund, there was no puck supporter. They just couldn't, they couldn't even get shots on goal, and that was the only thing that bothered me about last night is you're 30 minutes into a game with Phoenix freaking Copley in net, not Braden Holtby, Phoenix Copley, who's the most manic. He's a goalie that looks like he's being electrocuted in net. I mean, when he gets shots on him, pucks are just it's crazy. Him in net. Wild fans didn't get to witness that Phoenix Copley yesterday. I mean, he's like a freaking trampoline, and it's almost the most entertaining thing in the world to watch because he's actually quite effective. But he's in a lot of ways a type of Dominic Hasek type of Anton Hudobin type of just all over the map type thing. And the Wild have 6 shots against them through 30 minutes. Come on. Let's recognize, who you're playing here and start just shooting from everywhere, but they didn't do that.
He put a couple nice passes on their sticks too.
Right. And then exactly. And then to his credit, he made the big saves when he needed to. Because if he gives up one goal in that last 10 minutes after the Marcus Foligno fight, I think the Wild win that game, but being down by 2, I think, was yesterday too big of a hill to climb.
Secondly, did you see the Brad Meyer injury from the Capitals Blue
No,
Jackets
I didn't.
game?
No.
Where his knee got twisted, and then when he fell, he just did splits right on the ice.
Wow.
And the Caps trainer came off the ice like a shot, and they had to help him down the tunnel.
No, I did not see that. I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah.
And I don't wish that on anybody. I actually like Brad.
Yeah.
Even though he seems to have it for the Wild.
But even though it was the Caps and the Blue Jackets, he did call a 2-minute hooking penalty on Stahl from there.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
And the third thing is our special guest, Dawn, I wanted to say that I met her at the Minnesota United press conference at Target Field a few years ago, and she was very nice and gracious to me.
No, I know.
So,
she says I was wrong. She's as nice as Joe Christensen.
Than Joe.
Yeah,
Joe was really
nice.
mean to him that day.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, well.
I've seen
I'm
Joe
just
be
teasing
mean.
Joe.
Could you imagine Joe being mean?
Never.
Though? Yeah, no.
Never. He's even laughing now when we're calling him mean. He's so nice.
I've seen him aggravated. We used to cover spring training games together. The leaf blowers would come out right when we were sitting there trying to, you're in a beautiful ballpark, it's quiet, and they'd have 85 leaf blowers turn on at the same time, and Joe wanted to go kill somebody. So he's got that Minnesota, he's got the dark side, it's kind of hidden.
We should rank niceness of Star Tribune sports writers.
There's Joe Christensen, and there's Joe Christensen.
Where would you, Royce, and Sid wind up on that list?
We're not on the list. Joe's like 1 through 10 on the list, and then there are a few other people, and then we're...
Joe, you'll love this story. I'm sure you're not an avid Russo-Souhan Show listener, but a couple weeks ago I'm at Brasa, and the waiter comes up to me, and he goes, and I must have been wearing the Talk North hat. And he goes, "Oh, do you I can't remember what it was. Oh no, I was wearing my athletic hat." And he goes, "Oh, are you a fan of that site?" And I'm like, "No, I write for the site." So I assume that makes me his fan.
I'm a pretty big deal.
So then he starts telling me about how he's a huge Wolves fan, loves Krasinski, blah, blah, blah. And he listens to the Roy Smalley, but he's a huge Twins fan. And he listens to Roy Smalley's Souhan show, and he goes to me, "Do you know Souhan?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do a podcast with Souhan as well." And he goes, "Yes." He goes, "Doesn't it seem to you like Souhan's just becoming more optimistic lately?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it really does." And I think it's because of the podcast, because he has to seem likable.
I have to try. I have to pretend to be likable at least a couple hours a week, which is it's a stretch for me.
Yeah. I love how your car there has the Talk North stuff on. It's like
advertising.
It says Jim Souhan on his car, which if I were you, I'd be scared.
You know what? Nothing's happened yet.
Yeah.
Yet.
Like, you're not the most beloved character in the Twin Cities. Like, if there's a good chance that one day somebody's going to drive by and see, holy crap, that's Jim Souhan, and do a 180 U-turn, and there's going to be a problem. There's a chance.
You have a lot of violent thoughts running through your mind.
I would not.
Has he always had these problems, Barbara?
Yeah.
Has he always had these problems? He's always had a tendency to worry about violence. Yes. That's the answer. Yes.
Yeah. What I would do is make Brandon have it on. Brandon can advertise the Talk North thing.
You just came up with a brilliant idea. That's your first good idea on this podcast.
Yeah. So.
We only have a couple minutes left on the podcast. We appreciate everybody who came out tonight. Thanks for coming out and supporting Delano's and the Podcast Network. Thanks to Don and Barbara. Thanks to our sponsors, Delano's Pizza, delanospizza.com. Bite Squad, remember, Friday through Sunday only. Friday through Sunday only. Wild 2018 gets you 10% off your entire order. Thanks to Twill and the Dining Galleria. WhizKids.tech, WHIZKIDS.tech. FixologyRepair.com. Go check out John Seiko line and also his sale on Kenneth Cole and Guest Watches. And Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin. We can highly recommend Tony as an insurance agent. A couple more minutes left. Dawn, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Well, I'm going to do a shameless plug.
Yeah.
Please do.
If you could tune into Fox 9 Sunday morning on a Vikings Game Day Live. I sat down today with Kirk Cousins as he starts the second half of the season and talking to him about how he is adjusting here and all of his, he's a tough nut to crack in terms of he's very...
He's programmed.
He's very stay-at-home, very this and that. But, it did crack a couple smiles from him and get a few things out of him. So that'll be Sunday morning.
Awesome.
Pragmatic is what Barbara calls him.
Pragmatic. Very nice.
Pragmatic. But
Boy,
he's a good guy.
there's a writer in the family.
Right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Brian, you have been very quiet today.
Anything you want to chip in, Brian?
Brian's... So we were going to do this. It was my idea. So when I was out in the burbs today, I was going to stop off at Brian's house and have my mother go up to his front door, ring the bell with her suitcase, and say, "I'm here." But Brian wasn't home.
Dang it!
Here comes
Brian.
So if you remember, Brian is the one. Just so you know, that in Italy, we had this big hilarious fight. The Karen was going to kill him, and then he actually almost fell off Cinque Terre's railing. So. Yeah.
You would have gladly welcomed your mother at her house.
There's still time. You have to drive back there.
I think it's just terrible, Michael, that you buy a big mansion in the eastern suburbs and you make it a one-bedroom so Mom can't visit.
Yeah, I know.
It's just not right.
She walks in today. She goes over to the extra bedroom and she goes, "This is my bedroom?" And I'm like, kind of.
Okay, just one thing when you're out there in the suburbs, those things in the sky are stars.
Yeah, I know. They're going to freak me out. There's no doubt. There's going to be a lot of things I will miss. Like just being able to walk outside and go like, oh, want to go get us a
Well,
coffee.
you always walk here to do the podcast.
Yeah, from the burbs.
No, I'm saying you always have
Oh
walked
yeah,
here. Yes.
yeah, but that's a short walk.
I know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what
I did get
you're
a
gonna miss.
text. I did get a text from somebody that's got a question for you.
Oh yeah.
Peter from Austria. He would like to know where he can read your blog.